What was your greatest achievement?
This year,
Yeah.
being able to have the right to squat.
The right to squat?
Jim Jones has officially crashed out, and listen to this, it's getting ugly. I genuinely don't know how you log back online after something like this without feeling the heat. For reasons that make zero strategic sense, Jim decided to step into the ring with 50 Cent, and now 50 got him boxed in, chessboard flipped, no exits in sight. Hold up, let's rewind how this whole mess kicked off before we get into the fresh tea. So Jim and his co-host went on their platform and started talking about 50 Cent producing a documentary about Diddy, and they clearly weren't rocking with it. 50 caught wind of the chatter real quick because you know nothing slides past him. So instead of ignoring it, 50 said bet and reached out to the landlord of the building where they film. Not only did he make that call, but plot twist, the landlord already had tension with Jim Jones, so he was more than open to doing business with 50 and even entertaining selling him the building. Now here's where it gets wild. A phone call surfaces, with the landlord spilling all of Jim's business to 50, saying Jim owes back rent and they're actively trying to evict him. According to that call, Jim is basically squatting because he refuses to leave the building. Girl, today might feel like rock bottom, but let's be real, 50's been applying pressure on Jim for a minute now. So yes, 50 definitely seems to have a vendetta lately, all because Jim chose to speak on him in that Diddy documentary. Jim and his co-host made it clear they didn't think 50 producing a documentary about Diddy was the right move. And 50's response? Cool, I'll just contact the landlord of the spot you record at and see about owning it, so that podcast can't even function. You won't believe this part. When 50 made that call, he didn't even know the landlord personally, but the landlord already had serious issues with Jim. He already couldn't stand Jim because of the money owed and the ongoing problems. So by the time 50 connected with him, the landlord was more than ready to unload every detail about Jim's situation.
Rent it. And I said, okay, fine. Right? He's been saying this for since October. And he keeps trying to build it, but he won't sign the lease. He's like, I don't like these terms. I want 6 months of build out. And ridiculous bullshit. We also have a partnership agreement where half of what he's building now, his media, belongs to us. But he won't tell us how much he's making and doing all these things. So half of the content he's creating, if you want to buy that too, I'll sell you half the company. He's not a business. He's insane. To me, it's worth very little to nothing. But if it works out for you, I just throw that in as a sweetener. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is he signed a lease with me. Right now he owes, I'm going to say in a short way, at least 80,000, if not 180,000.
Listen to this, it was actually the landlord who tipped 50 Cent off that the building Jim Jones is filming in doesn't even have heat. They literally shut the heat off to pressure Jim out because he's allegedly squatting while they're pushing to evict him. So now 50 is sitting on all of this intel, and for some wild reason, Jim is still online in the comments, still denying pieces of the story and acting like everything between him and the landlord is solid, even implying it's basically his building. Hold up, this is after 50 already exposed that Jim was behind on rent, facing eviction, and operating in a spot with no heat. Jim then gives a full tour of the space, trying to flex like he's a mogul in motion, with a multi-production studio on the way and new expansions planned. He's talking about building out new sections and creating a whole new faction inside the property. Meanwhile, and this is the part that gets me, the same building he's renovating is actively trying to get him out while he's putting money into upgrades.
Since I'm starting the year off at the top of your Explorer, are you not entertained? Since everybody want to put my business in the street, I might as well talk to you about my business. Right now I am in the second phase of construction. We're not open to public. This is a raw space. I have not found out yet what I want to do exactly in this space, but in my mind, I was thinking of building like a little mart, but we'll see how that goes.
Hold up, this is the real issue with hustle culture. Everybody wants to look busy, but not everybody wants to actually build something solid. Jim Jones is pouring time and money into a full-blown business inside a building he's not even legally supposed to occupy, allegedly having to force entry just to get inside. So he launches this thing called the IFC Factory, right? It's marketed as a content hub where you can pull up, record podcasts, shoot photos, create content, the whole creative vibe. And listen to this, I even saw the listing on Peerspace myself, going for $65 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. I looked at it and thought, okay, but you're running this out of a building that's actively trying to evict you. That's where it stops being boss moves and starts looking reckless. Jim's been able to stretch his stay because 1, he's got money, and 2, New York tenants have serious legal protections, so he clearly understands the loopholes and regulations well enough to extend his squat. But make no mistake, they've been pushing to remove him this whole time. Now today, 50 Cent announced that the eviction process has made progress, and they're moving toward enforcement to officially get Jim out. The eviction notice was posted on the door and addressed directly to IFC Management, which is Jim's company. Since he branded the studio under IFC Management, Joseph Jones and all, that's the name that showed up on the paperwork at that address. And the building itself is massive, covering multiple addresses: 788, 789, 791, first floor, second floor. The whole setup is huge. But reading through the documents closely, and this is my first deep dive into them, it looks like there are still procedural steps left before it's final. They issued a notice of default on January 15th for unpaid money, and it expired January 22nd with no payment made. Then came a 5-day termination notice sent February 10th, expiring February 17th. From what it sounds like, Jim might still squeeze out another few weeks while they move into the next phase, which involves getting a sheriff, securing the eviction order, and physically removing him if it comes to that. Hopefully it doesn't escalate to that level, because that would be a scene. Now here's where it gets even messier. 50 somehow obtained clips of Jim inside the building, and trust me, we'll unpack later how deep those connections really go, but the footage 50 posted, straight embarrassing. It shows Jim trying to force his way into certain locked rooms because those rooms control the heat and the landlord had shut access off. He's seen attempting to get into those locked spaces to turn the heat back on, but the landlord had already sealed parts of the building. And overall, no matter how you slice it, this is just a terrible look all around.
He cut the lights on. You're not supposed to, you heard me? He cut the lights on. What's up? Hi. Yeah, I'm good. No, it's fine. What was you talking about? He cut the lights on. We're not supposed to, you heard Jim? Huh? He cut the lights on.
So boom, his guy walks into the room, flips the light switch on and off, and you can see the confusion. Then he tells him straight up, "Yo, Jimmy, they cut the lights." Listen to this. That's not a flex. That's a red flag. Bro, you're Jim Jones, a man with access to real capital, real connections, streams of income the average person can't even touch. So why put yourself in this position? Why not structure it properly, secure financing, go through a bank if needed, and acquire your own building the legitimate way so you can build it from the ground up? Why operate out of a space you clearly can't afford to maintain? Didn't he reportedly owe around $180,000 on that building a couple months back? And if that number was sitting there 2 months ago, you already know it's probably climbed higher by now. If the numbers aren't adding up, if you can't sustain the property, Sometimes the smartest move is to walk away. Because willingly staying in a situation like this, that's not hustle, that's self-inflicted pressure nobody asked for.
What's up? What happened? Yeah, I'm good. No, it's mine. My apartment. All right?
There's no audio on the clip, but hold up. Just look at Jim's face. The rage is boiling over. You can literally see him steaming through the screen. I'm telling you, you can feel the frustration vibrating off that footage. And the whole reason he's storming around like that is because he's trying to locate the room where the landlord shut off the heat so he can flip the breaker and get warmth back in the building. When you watch that earlier tour video he did, you can actually see his breath while he's talking, which tells you it's freezing inside. Then peep the podcast episodes. Jim, Mano, Fab, Dave East, they're all bundled up heavy every single time. The only one who might occasionally have on something lighter is Mano, but even he's layered up most days. Jim is pacing, clearly irritated, snapping at people to relax, and from the way it looks, he's telling them to calm down so they can keep forcing that door open again. That's not boss energy, that's desperation. He looks drained, hair messy, breathing hard, posture defeated. Let's be honest, this whole situation feels like it's about flexing for Instagram, trying to prove he owns a building and is making power moves. But in the process, he's risking other people's livelihoods. There's a woman who hosts a talk show under the IFC network, and she's also renting the space out on Peerspace to make extra income. Now her opportunity is hanging in the balance because of this chaos. And if you thought that was the worst part, it actually gets deeper. Word is 50 Cent has built an even stronger relationship with the property owner, the same guy who's been feeding him inside info on Jim. That owner clearly enjoys the spotlight because he's been chatting non-stop. And here's the twist. Apparently, he's now given 50 an ownership stake in the building. 50 even said, "Sim is my partner. I own the joint," basically confirming he's tied in. So if that's true, 50 now has control over the property too. At that point, it turns into fix every door you kicked in or we're having a real problem by Monday, Jimmy. And hearing that, man, it's rough to watch. But it still doesn't stop there, because this drama isn't just between 50 and Jim anymore. Due to Mano and some of the co-hosts' energy, since Jim himself doesn't usually spark all attention, he's inherited new enemies along the way. Now those same people are clowning him publicly. Academics even jumped on live stream and went in on Jim, Mano, Dave East, and Fabulous without mercy.
Are 50 years old getting evicted. That's disgusting and sad. You guys have all had supposedly prosperous careers in whatever you've done. To get evicted at 50 years old is fucking pathetic. Fab, you rapped for 30 years. If you can't pay your rent, that's disgusting. Jim Jones, you gangbanged and did a whole bunch of bullshit for like 50 years. If you can't pay your rent, that's disgusting. Mano, you done robbed the entire Brooklyn niggas and pulled out guns on them. If you didn't rob enough money to pay your rent, that's disgusting. I'm sorry to tell y'all, man. Kicking in doors at 50 years old is just not the wave. And maybe I gotta be the pussy civilian to kind of like, bring the youth that's watching y'all, because y'all previously says y'all were bodega boys, lobby boys, now podcast boys, or as 50 calls y'all, squatters. I'll lead the audience y'all are trying to appeal to. Hey, YNs of the world, never be this. When you're 50, you should be kicked back, feet up, living a luxurious life with galore, kids that you're taking care of, and many things to show. Not being kicking down a door to get in to start gossiping.
And listen, I actually want Jim Jones to hear this part clearly. You can sometimes laugh your way through a scandal, bro. The first time he got exposed for owing rent and allegedly squatting, they jumped on the podcast and cracked a bunch of awkward squatter jokes like it was all content. But this time, nah, you can't meme your way out of this one. Jokes only land when there's no real smoke behind them, when the rumors don't have receipts attached. If there's zero proof and you're just poking fun at gossip, cool, that's strategy. But once the paperwork, the notices, the footage all line up and confirm the claims, joking about it just feels forced. At that point, it's not satire, it's secondhand embarrassment.
What was your greatest achievement?
This year,
Yeah.
being able to have the right to squat.
The right to squat?
All right, so now the fog is gone. Now we really see the play. It looks like Jim Jones figured out he could slide into massive buildings, stall on rent, and lean on tenant laws to shield him. At first, it sounded like content, like maybe it was all jokes. But now we know it wasn't a punchline, because he was actually squatting in a high-ticket property and riding it out without paying.